The galaxy had always been at war. For centuries, it had been divided into countless factions, each more powerful than the last, each bent on domination. Alien empires stretched across the stars, their technology advanced beyond human comprehension. The idea that Earth, a planet once considered a backwater of the universe, could play any role in this galactic conflict was laughable. But that was before humanity revealed its true strength. When the first of Earth's ships appeared in the distant reaches of space, it caused no immediate concern. It was small, barely detectable by the alien sensors that swept across the stars, like a mosquito in the distance. The aliens had never heard of Earth, never given it a second thought. The human race was still a myth to them, primitive, insignificant. But the humans had their secrets. In the shadow of the alien armada, Earth had built an army, not just any army, but a highly advanced, highly secretive force. Humans had learned, adapted, and evolved. They were no longer the simple creatures who once struggled to leave their own atmosphere. They had learned to cloak their ships, to shield themselves from the prying eyes of the enemy. They had perfected technologies that bent the laws of physics itself, and they had something the aliens never counted on: an unbreakable will to survive. It started with a single ship, a warship that emerged from the dark void like a phantom, its outline barely visible to the alien sensors. The crew was small, but their mission was clear: strike first, before the enemy could react. As soon as the ship entered the alien fleet's orbit, it disappeared, its cloaking device rendering it invisible to even the most sophisticated alien tracking systems. The aliens had no idea what hit them. The warship's first strike was a blinding pulse of energy that ripped through the alien fleet like a knife through butter. The blast disabled several ships, leaving them floating helplessly in space. The aliens scrambled, but it was already too late. Earth had entered the war, and it was not here to play by the rules. On the ground, the humans were just as deadly. When their soldiers landed on an alien-controlled planet, they moved with lethal precision. The aliens, expecting an easy victory, found themselves unprepared for the human tactics. The soldiers used cloaking devices that made them invisible, ambushing alien patrols before they even had a chance to react. Humans fought like ghosts, blending into their surroundings, striking from the shadows. Their weapons were advanced, their armor nearly impenetrable. But it wasn't just technology that made them so dangerous, it was their strategy. Humans fought smart. While the alien forces relied on brute strength and firepower, humans relied on cunning, stealth, and speed. They adapted to every situation, using their environment to their advantage. Where the aliens saw a barren wasteland, humans saw a battlefield. Where the aliens saw weakness, humans saw opportunity. And with every victory, humanity's reputation spread throughout the galaxy. The aliens, who had once considered them insignificant, now feared them. It wasn't just the humans' technology that made them a threat. It was their ability to turn the tables on the enemy in ways the galaxy had never seen before. One of the key figures leading this charge was Captain Bonner, a man whose reputation among the humans had already begun to grow. He had once been an ordinary soldier, fighting for his survival on Earth. But after the invasion of his planet by a ruthless alien force, he had become something more. He had become the symbol of humanity's fight for survival, a leader who refused to bow to the might of the alien empires. Bonner had lost everything in that invasion: his home, his family, his friends. But he had also gained something that no alien could understand: a burning desire for revenge. He would make the aliens pay for the destruction they had brought to his world. And so he led humanity's charge into the galaxy, taking the fight to the very heart of the alien empires. His forces were small, outnumbered, but they were fierce. Every battle they fought was a testament to humanity's resilience. With every alien ship they destroyed, with every alien soldier they killed, they sent a clear message to the galaxy: humanity was not to be underestimated. But it wasn't just about revenge. For Bonner and the rest of humanity, this war was about survival. They knew that if they didn't act now, they would be wiped out, just another casualty of the galaxy's endless war. But if they fought back, if they held their ground, they could change everything. The future of Earth, and of every human alive, rested on their shoulders. As Bonner watched from the command deck of his flagship, the stars beyond his window seemed to pulse with a cold, distant light. The galaxy stretched out before him, vast and unknown. But for the first time, it didn't feel like a place of endless war. It felt like a place where humanity could rise, a place where they could fight for their survival and win. The alien fleets, once so confident in their power, now cowered in fear at the arrival of the humans. The galaxy would never be the same again, and this was only the beginning. The stars were quiet, but the silence was only temporary. From the moment the first human strike had hit the alien fleet, the galaxy had begun to change. What the alien empires had once viewed as a minor threat had become a nightmare they couldn't ignore. And as word spread from one corner of the galaxy to the other, a strange fear began to take hold of every alien empire. At first, they dismissed the humans as just another enemy that could crush easily. After all, they had done it countless times before, wiped out species too weak to stand against them, eradicated civilizations that didn't have the technology to fight back. But this time, things were different. As more alien ships fell to the humans' attacks, as more alien worlds burned, the empires began to feel the pressure. They had faced wars before, but none had ever felt like this. The humans didn't fight like anyone they had encountered. They didn't rush in blindly. They didn't rely on sheer numbers. They were quiet, strategic, and relentless. And most terrifying of all, they never gave up. No matter how many times the aliens tried to fight back, the humans kept coming, always one step ahead, always adapting. On the outskirts of one of the largest alien empires, the Grand Council convened in secret. The members, leaders of the most powerful species in the galaxy, had long held their position through fear and force. They ruled with an iron fist, their combined fleets making them untouchable. They had never feared anything until now. The humans are a problem we cannot ignore. One of the leaders, a large reptilian species called the Gorthians, growled as he slammed his fist onto the table. His yellow eyes flickered with fury. They are not like any enemy we have faced before. They are too unpredictable, too dangerous. Another council member, a tall insectoid species called the Xerians, spoke up. "You are right, Gorthian. We have lost too many ships. Too many of our fleets have been scattered. The humans have some form of technology that allows them to strike without warning, without being detected. We can't even target them properly. We need to do something, or they will bring the entire galaxy to its knees." The leader of the council, a sleek, armored being from the Tarmic species, held up a hand to silence the room. "We will deal with this. We have resources, and we have power. If these humans think they can challenge us, they are gravely mistaken." But even as the words left the Tarmic leader's mouth, a sense of unease settled over the room. The other leaders were not so sure. The humans had something that had taken the entire galaxy by surprise, a resolve that could not be broken. They were not the typical weak species that would fall when faced with overwhelming odds. And the more the council debated, the more they realized the humans were unlike any adversary they had ever faced. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Captain Bonner and his team were not resting. They knew the enemy was regrouping and that a counterattack was inevitable. As they prepared for the next phase of their campaign, the reality of what they were up against started to hit home. Every day they received word of new battles, new skirmishes, new planets the humans had liberated. It was a war that felt endless, but they couldn't afford to slow down. The humans had no choice but to keep pushing forward. The stakes had become personal for everyone involved. Bonner had seen too much loss to let up. He had lost men, friends, soldiers who had fought by his side, and with every loss, his resolve grew stronger. He would not let the enemy win. Not again. As the council continued to debate, the fear was growing. The galaxy was on the brink of panic. Even the most advanced alien species were now questioning their superiority. They had once believed themselves to be the rulers of the stars, but the humans had shown them otherwise. They were no longer the quiet, primitive species of the past. They were a force to be reckoned with, and the aliens weren't sure they could win. The Gorthians, Syrians, and other alien factions began to turn on each other. They blamed their own weaknesses for the humans' rise. "It's your fault," shouted a Gorthian general to a Syrian commander after another defeat. "You've underestimated them from the start. We could have wiped them out if we hadn't wasted so much time bickering among ourselves." But the Syrians weren't willing to take the blame. "It's not our fault," the Syrian retorted. "It's the Tarmics. If they hadn't insisted on pushing us into this war when we weren't ready, we'd still be in control." The infighting only made things worse. While they argued, the humans kept pushing, striking at weak points in their defenses, picking apart their fleets. No one knew what the humans would do next, and that was the most terrifying part. The unpredictability of their actions, their ability to strike and disappear without a trace, made them the ultimate nightmare for any alien species. Even the Tarmic leader, who had been the most confident in the council, began to question his own forces. It wasn't just the loss of ships, it was the fact that they couldn't find the humans, couldn't stop them. Every time the humans struck, they left behind only wreckage. The fear of being completely wiped out was real. Back on Earth, Captain Bonner stared out the window of his command ship, watching as the stars passed by. The war was far from over, but the humans had proven something that no one had expected. They had proven that, despite their limited resources, despite being outnumbered and outgunned, they could stand toe-to-toe with the most powerful alien empires in the galaxy. And as Bonner looked out at the stars, he knew one thing for sure. The fear that had begun to spread throughout the galaxy was only the beginning. The humans were just getting started. The Galactic Council, once proud and unshakable, was now on the verge of collapse. The humans had already proven that they were more than capable of taking on the mightiest empires. The fear that had gripped the alien factions was now turning into panic. Every move the humans made seemed to strike at the heart of their power. Their ships, once invisible to alien sensors, had appeared in the most unexpected places, wreaking havoc wherever they went. The aliens could no longer ignore them. Something had to be done. In the darkened command room of the Council's flagship, the alien leaders gathered. The air was thick with tension, every species represented on the table, their faces grim. The once confident Tarmic leader, who had dismissed the humans as a mere annoyance, now sat with his head bowed, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. "We cannot continue like this," he muttered, his voice low. "The humans are everywhere. They strike our weakest points, and every attempt to fight back only makes them stronger. They are not like the others we have conquered. They learn, adapt, and come back harder." One of the Gorthian generals slammed his fist on the table. "We need a new plan, and we need it now. If we wait any longer, they will come for our homeworlds, and we will have nothing left to defend." The room fell silent, the realization of what was at stake settling in. The aliens had underestimated humanity from the start. And now, with each victory, the humans were gaining strength, allies, and the will to push further into the galaxy. It was a war the aliens had not anticipated, and now they were running out of options. The Syrians, always calm and calculated, were the first to speak up. "There is one option left, one that we've kept hidden for centuries. It's a last resort, a weapon so powerful that it could wipe out entire fleets in an instant. But it comes at a cost. We will need to call upon the ancient technology that has been lost to us. The weapon is buried deep within the oldest ruins of our civilization, and we do not know if it will even work." The other leaders exchanged uneasy glances. The Syrians were known for their intelligence, their ability to uncover secrets hidden within the galaxy's past. But even they hesitated. The weapon they spoke of was dangerous, something the Council had agreed to leave dormant for fear of its power. But now, with the humans tearing through their defenses, they had little choice. If this is the only way, the Tarmic leader said, his voice tight, then we have no choice but to try. We will send a fleet to retrieve this weapon. If it works, it could be our salvation. If it fails, we will lose everything. The decision was made. The fleet was assembled, a massive armada of alien ships, their weapons primed and ready. They set course for the ancient ruins, a distant, forgotten planet at the edge of the galaxy. It was a planet that no one had dared visit in millennia, its surface buried beneath layers of dust and debris, its secrets hidden from all but a few. As the fleet made its way through the stars, Captain Bonner and his forces were already preparing for the next phase of the war. They knew that the aliens would not sit idly by and let their empire crumble. They would fight back, and they would fight hard. But the humans were ready. They had no choice but to win. The stakes had never been higher, and the tension in the air was palpable. Bonner stood at the command deck, watching the stars streak by as his flagship cruised silently through space. His crew was at their stations, focused, ready for whatever the aliens would throw at them. Bonner had seen what the aliens were capable of, and he knew that they would not go down without a fight. But that didn't matter. The humans were united, stronger than ever, and they had something the aliens didn't: determination. "Get ready," Bonner said, his voice steady, but carrying the weight of the responsibility he now carried. "We've pushed them to their limits. Now, we finish this." But the humans had no idea that the aliens were preparing something even more devastating. The weapon they had unearthed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was a relic from an ancient time, a weapon that had been created by a species long forgotten. The Xerians, with their knowledge of the past, had found it buried beneath the surface of the planet, hidden away for centuries. Its power was said to be able to obliterate entire fleets with a single command, its energy capable of disintegrating any ship, no matter how advanced. But there was a price. The weapon was a double-edged sword. It would drain the energy of the entire fleet that launched it, leaving them vulnerable, unable to defend themselves after the blast. The alien leaders knew this, but they had no choice. The threat of humanity was too great. If they didn't use the weapon, they risked losing everything. The decision was made, and the fleet prepared to launch the weapon. Meanwhile, the humans continued their march through the galaxy, unaware of the impending danger. As they neared the edge of alien territory, they received reports of strange activity in the area. Communications were down, and the usual patrols were missing. Something was coming, but no one knew what. The tension on Bonner's ship was palpable. The crew had been briefed about the growing alien threat, and everyone knew that the next battle would determine the fate of the galaxy. Bonner's mind raced, running through every possible scenario. He knew the aliens were desperate, but what were they planning? And what would it take to stop them? The answer came faster than anyone expected. A massive flash of light appeared on the horizon, far off in the distance. It was so bright that it illuminated the dark void of space like a second sun. The human ships turned to face it, but the source of the light was moving too quickly. The alien weapon had been unleashed. The blast struck with unimaginable force, tearing through the space around it. Entire fleets of alien ships disintegrated in an instant, reduced to nothing more than glowing particles. The humans watched in awe and terror as the wave of energy swept through space, wiping out everything in its path. It was the ultimate weapon, a force that could not be stopped. But even as the weapon unleashed its fury, Bonner knew one thing for certain. The war was not over. The humans had always known that victory would come at a price. And now, the real battle was about to begin. The universe seemed to hold its breath as the shockwave from the alien weapon tore through the void, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. The immense energy burst had obliterated entire fleets of alien ships, disintegrating them into nothing more than glowing fragments. But even as the humans watched in horror at the devastation, they knew this was only the beginning. Captain Bonner stood at the helm of his ship, staring out at the swirling chaos. His mind raced as he tried to calculate what had just happened. The blast had been powerful, far more powerful than anything they had ever encountered. But it wasn't over. The humans weren't here just to survive. They were here to win. And that meant fighting back against the alien menace, no matter what it took. His voice was steady as he spoke to his crew. Prepare for battle. We don't know what we're up against, but we're not going to let them win. We fight to the last. The crew moved swiftly, their faces grim but determined. They had seen what the aliens were capable of, and now the humans had to show them what they were made of. Bonner knew that the war had reached its climax. Everything they had fought for, everything they had sacrificed, would come down to this one final confrontation. The alien forces, weakened by their own weapon, were still reeling from the blast. But they weren't defeated. The alien leaders had retreated to their command ships, trying to regroup, desperate to retain control. They knew that the humans were coming, and they had one final card to play. Inside the Council's flagship, the alien leaders gathered once again, their faces etched with worry and frustration. The Tarmic leader, the one who had once been so confident, now looked defeated. The power they had relied on was slipping away, and the humans had proven to be far more resilient than anyone had ever imagined. "We've lost so much," the Tarmic leader muttered, his voice filled with regret. "The weapon was supposed to give us victory, but instead, it's only hastened our downfall." One of the Syrians, their most intelligent and calculating member, spoke up. "We still have a chance. There's one final thing we can try, a weapon older than anything we've ever known. It's a last resort, but it might be our only hope." The alien leaders exchanged wary glances. They had already used their most devastating weapon, and now they were faced with a choice. Would they risk everything on an ancient weapon that could either save them or destroy them completely? "There is no choice," the Tarmic leader finally said. "If we don't act now, the humans will wipe us out. We have no other option. Prepare the device." On the human side, Bonner and his crew were already making their way toward the heart of the alien fleet. They knew the final battle was imminent, and they were ready. But Bonner couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. He had fought the aliens before, but this time, there was a different kind of desperation in the air. The aliens were scared, and when an enemy is scared, that's when they're most dangerous. "Captain," one of his officers said, breaking his train of thought, "we've detected a massive energy surge coming from the enemy fleet. They're preparing something. It's unlike anything we've seen before." Bonner's eyes narrowed. He had expected this. The aliens had always had tricks up their sleeves, and now they were playing their final hand. "Full speed ahead," Bonner ordered. "We don't know what they're planning, but we're not going to let them use it." As Bonner's ship closed in on the alien fleet, the tension in the air was palpable. The human forces, outnumbered and outgunned, were still determined to fight. They had come so far, and they weren't going to stop now. Every soldier, every pilot, every crew member understood what was at stake. This was the moment that would determine the fate of their world. The first wave of alien ships opened fire, their weapons unleashing a barrage of deadly energy beams. The human ships dodged and weaved through the attack, returning fire with everything they had. It was chaos, pure and simple. Explosions rocked the space around them, and the sound of weapons fire filled the air, even though there was no sound in space. Bonner was in the thick of it, his hand steady on the controls as he commanded his ship to avoid enemy fire while returning powerful blasts of their own. His heart raced as he watched the destruction unfold around him. But even as the battle raged on, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, something worse than anything they had faced so far. Then, without warning, a massive energy beam erupted from the alien fleet, striking Bonner's ship with an intensity that nearly crippled the vessel. The lights flickered, and the entire ship shook violently as systems went down one by one. Bonner gripped the console, trying to stay focused despite the chaos around him. "We're hit. Shields are failing. One of the crew members shouted, "Get them back online." Bonner barked, "We're not done yet." But even as they fought to repair the ship, the alien fleet continued its relentless assault. The humans were holding their ground, but it was clear that the aliens were preparing something far worse. Bonner's mind raced, trying to think of a way to turn the tide of the battle. And then, just as it seemed like all hope was lost, something extraordinary happened. A signal, faint but unmistakable, came through their communication systems. It was a signal from Earth, from the heart of the human resistance. "Captain Bonner," the voice crackled through the speakers. "We've got your back. We've deployed every last ship we have. Reinforcements are on their way." Bonner's heart surged with hope. The humans had come together, just as they always did in times of crisis. This was it, the final push, the moment they had all been waiting for. With the reinforcements arriving, the balance of power was shifting. The alien leaders, seeing the reinforcements arrive and realizing their time was running out, made their final move. The ancient weapon they had unleashed was ready, but it was a weapon of destruction, one that would either break the humans or break the aliens themselves. As the energy from the weapon surged toward them, Bonner made one last decision. "All ships, full power to the forward cannons. We're going to end this, right here, right now." The final confrontation had begun. The final battle had descended into chaos. The once unified alien fleet, now fragmented and scattered across the vast expanse of space, was locked in a desperate struggle for survival. The human forces, still recovering from their earlier damage, fought with everything they had, their determination unwavering. But despite their bravery, the tide of the war was far from certain. Every explosion, every shot fired was a reminder that this was not just a fight for victory, it was a fight for survival. Captain Bonner's hands gripped the controls tightly as he steered his ship through the flames of battle. The massive alien weapon had been disabled, but the damage had already been done. The human fleet had been severely weakened, and they were running out of time. The reinforcements from Earth had arrived, but they were outnumbered, their ships battered and broken from the long journey through enemy territory. "Status report." Bonner barked as his ship shook violently from a near miss. Sparks flew from the control panel in front of him, but he stayed focused. "We've lost 3 more ships, Captain," came the voice of his chief engineer, tinged with worry. "Our shields are down to 30%, and the engines are overheating. We're running on fumes here." Bonner clenched his jaw. The battle was slipping away from them, and the weight of responsibility was becoming unbearable. The lives of everyone aboard his ship, as well as the survival of the entire human race, rested on his shoulders. He couldn't let it slip now. Not when they were so close. "Don't stop," he commanded. "Push those engines to the limit. We fight to the end, or we die trying." His crew responded with a determination that only comes from knowing they had nothing left to lose. They were fighting not just for themselves, but for their families, their homes, their very existence. The aliens had invaded their world, destroyed their cities, and killed their people. The time for mercy had long passed. The alien fleet, once a symbol of unmatched power, was beginning to fracture under the pressure. The massive alien warships, once imposing and invulnerable, now seemed smaller and more vulnerable in the face of the relentless human assault. But even as the tide seemed to turn, the aliens were not ready to give up. In their desperation, they unleashed a final devastating weapon, one that would either destroy humanity or break their resolve forever. On the bridge of the alien command ship, the Tarmic leader watched the destruction unfold before him. His forces were dwindling, and his people were losing faith in their cause. Yet despite everything, he could not bring himself to surrender. There was one last hope, a weapon so powerful that it could destroy the entire human fleet in one fell swoop. It was a weapon designed not just to kill, but to erase everything in its path. "Activate the quantum obliterator," the Tarmic leader ordered, his voice steady despite the panic creeping through the ship. "This is the last chance we have." The alien technicians scrambled to engage the weapon, their fingers flying over the controls as the massive cannon charged with raw, destructive energy. The air in the command center crackled with anticipation. The weapon was the pinnacle of alien technology, a device capable of wiping out entire fleets with a single shot. As the countdown to firing began, Bonner knew this was the final gamble. They had fought their way to this point, but if the quantum obliterator fired, it would end everything. There would be no coming back from such a strike. "Captain," one of the officers shouted, her voice filled with dread. "They've activated a massive weapon. Its energy readings are off the charts." Bonner's mind raced. He had no time to think, only time to act. "Take us in," Bonner ordered, his voice sharp and full of purpose. "We're going to hit them before they can fire." The crew scrambled to follow his orders, pushing the ship to its limits. The ship shuddered as it accelerated toward the alien command ship, weaving in and out of enemy fire. Bonner's heart pounded in his chest as the distance between them and the alien ship shrank. The weapon was charging, and time was running out. The enemy's fire was relentless. Beams of energy ripped through the darkness, but Bonner refused to flinch. He knew that this was their last shot. If they didn't take it now, they would all be wiped out in an instant. With one final, desperate push, Bonner commanded his ship to barrel forward, directly into the path of the alien command ship. The human forces, realizing what Bonner was doing, followed suit, closing in on the aliens. The tension was unbearable. Every fiber of Bonner's being screamed to pull away, to save himself and his crew. But he knew there was no choice. He was their only hope. The fate of humanity rested on his ability to break through, to stop the weapon before it could fire. As the alien ship loomed large on their screens, Bonner gave one last order: "Fire everything we've got." The human fleet launched a barrage of weapons, sending energy blasts, missiles, and projectiles toward the alien command ship. It was a final act of defiance, a hail of fire that seemed to pierce the very heart of the alien fleet. Explosions erupted around them, the air filled with the deafening roar of battle. Just as the quantum obliterator reached its peak energy, Bonner's ship slammed into the alien command vessel. The impact was catastrophic. The alien ship, caught in the full force of the human assault, erupted in a massive explosion, tearing apart the core of their weapon. The shockwave sent a ripple through the remaining alien ships, destabilizing their formations. For a moment, everything was silent. The universe seemed to pause, as if holding its breath. And then, the human forces let out a collective cheer, the sound of triumph ringing through their ships. The aliens had been defeated. The battle was over. Humanity had won. But the cost of victory was undeniable. Bonner looked around at his crew, his heart heavy with the weight of their sacrifices. Many of his men and women had fallen in the final battle. Bonner's closest friends, those who had fought by his side through every skirmish, had not made it. The celebration was muted, as everyone knew what had been lost. As the human fleet drifted through the wreckage of the alien ships, the full scale of their victory and their loss became clear. They had driven the invaders from their world, but the war had taken a heavy toll. Families had been torn apart, cities had been destroyed, and the cost of peace was the lives of those who had given everything to secure it. Captain Bonner stood alone on the bridge, staring out at the remains of the alien fleet. His crew had fought with honor, but the scars of war would never leave them. He had won, but at what cost? It didn't matter. In the end, they had done what no one had ever thought possible. They had stopped the alien invasion. They had secured the future of humanity. And they would never forget the price they had paid. The war was over. The skies over Earth were once again clear, free of the alien warships that had threatened to tear the planet apart. The humans had triumphed, but the victory felt hollow. The cost had been high, too high. Captain Bonner stood on the bridge of the lead human ship, staring out at the remnants of the alien fleet. It had been a long and brutal fight, but humanity had pulled through. Captain, came the voice of his first officer, breaking the silence. "The reports are coming in. We've won. The alien forces are retreating, and we've secured all major cities. Earth is safe." The answer was uncertain, but there was one thing Bonner was sure of. The future would be shaped by the survivors, by those who had fought and bled for this moment. The humans had shown that they were capable of great things, but they had also shown that they were fragile. The war had stripped them of their arrogance and shown them the true meaning of unity and sacrifice. As the ship touched down on Earth's surface, the crew stood in silence. They had made it back, but the real work was just beginning. Bonner knew that they would face challenges ahead, rebuilding their cities, their governments, and their lives. But they would face it together. The fight for survival had forged a bond that could never be broken. The battle was over, but the war for humanity's future was just beginning. The world may have been forever changed, but one thing was certain: the humans would rise from the ashes. They would rebuild, stronger than ever, and they would protect their home with everything they had. The future was theirs to shape. Bonner walked to the exit ramp of the ship, his heart heavy with the knowledge of all they had lost. But as he stepped out into the sunlight, he saw the faces of the people waiting for them, people who had fought, who had lost, but who had survived. And in their eyes, he saw the spark of hope, the promise of a new beginning. Humanity had faced the impossible, and they had won. The future was theirs, and together they would build a new world, one that would never forget the sacrifices made, but one that would always strive for a better tomorrow. Bonner's face remained stoic, but inside he felt a sense of relief. The people of Earth were safe, but the scars of war would remain. The cities that once stood proudly had been reduced to rubble. The lives of thousands had been lost, and many would never be the same. Even though they had secured their future, the road ahead would be filled with challenges. "Any word from the survivors of the fleet?" Bonner asked, his voice low. "We've lost contact with several ships," the officer replied. "But most are intact, Captain. We've managed to stabilize our communication networks. They're making their way back home." Bonner nodded, a sense of pride swelling in his chest. His people had endured the unthinkable and had come out victorious. They had proven to the galaxy that humanity was not to be underestimated, that even against overwhelming odds, they could stand tall. But the victory was not without its doubts. The human fleet had been severely damaged during the final confrontation, and the cost of war was evident in every corner of the planet. The once bustling cities were now ghost towns, their streets littered with debris, their buildings scared by the destruction. Millions had perished, and countless others would bear the psychological scars for the rest of their lives. The future of Earth was uncertain. Despite the overwhelming triumph, Captain Bonner knew that humanity would never forget the price they had paid. It was a victory that came with a heavy heart, a victory that left a deep void in the hearts of those who had fought so hard for it. But even in the face of such loss, there was hope. The survivors were resilient, and they had been given a second chance. The planet, once on the brink of annihilation, now had a chance to rebuild. It would take time, but Earth would recover. The people would rebuild, and the scars of war would eventually fade. But the memories of the fallen would never be forgotten. Bonner turned away from the view screen, his gaze settling on the faces of his crew. They were battered, tired, and grieving, but they were still standing. They had fought for each other, and they had fought for humanity. They had given everything, and now it was time to move forward. "Prepare for re-entry," Bonner ordered. "Let's bring our people home." As the human fleet descended into Earth's atmosphere, the planet below looked peaceful, as though nothing had ever happened. But Bonner knew the truth. The Earth that they were returning to was forever changed. The war may have ended, but the real work was just beginning. The survivors of the war would have to rebuild, not just the cities, but the world itself. They would have to rebuild the trust between nations, repair the broken bonds, and work together to ensure that something like this could never happen again. They would have to learn from their mistakes, from the destruction that had been wrought upon their world, and use that knowledge to create a better future. As Bonner's ship made its final descent, the first rays of sunlight pierced through the clouds. The earth below was scared, but there was a sense of renewal in the air. The war had torn them apart, but it had also united them in a way that nothing else could. Humanity had proven that they were capable of facing the impossible and surviving. They had shown the galaxy that they were not to be taken lightly. But the question remained, what would happen now? What would the future hold for a world that had been so close to destruction?